You're listening to the Today's Family Lawyer podcast, the leading source of daily news and insight for family law practitioners in England and Wales. Sign up to our free weekly newsletter at todaysfamilylawyer.co.uk and subscribe to hear all the latest news and views from across the family law sector. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Hello and welcome along to the latest Today's Family Lawyer podcast. Today I'm chatting with a brand, I suspect, that is very, very familiar to many of our listeners, but in its current form is very different from how they might imagine it. It's QualitySolicitors, a trailblazer from the 2010s, re-energized, I suppose, in its current incarnation, with Richard Skelley and Toria Browning at the helm. Richard CEO and Toria COO. It's great to have you both on the podcast. Thanks very much indeed for joining.
No, thanks for inviting us, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
The organisation probably doesn't need a huge amount of introduction, but you guys do. So in the first instance, perhaps you wouldn't mind telling me about yourselves. Richard, in the first instance, please.
I'm CEO. I joined the firm around about September last year, so coming up to my anniversary. Prior to that, I've always been involved with people businesses. My background is finance. I was in banking for 40 odd years, NatWest, RBS, Santander, and an investment bank. Always focused on people businesses at sort of mid-corporate and above level. Although obviously in my early days it was at much smaller sort of, businesses. But I've got a background in terms of the professional services. I was head of professional practices for RBS and had a lot of dealings with the Managing Partners Forum, etc. So pretty alive to the sector prior to joining QS, and I always enjoyed it. I like the people, I like the business models, and I think it's been an interesting journey over the last 12 months. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyable, and of course I get to work with Toria, which is a joy in itself.
Too kind, Richard.
Well, over to you then, Toria. So tell us about yourself and your role in the business as well, please.
Yes, so I've been with QualitySolicitors for just over 8 years now. I joined when QualitySolicitors formed part of another business, the Simplify Group. I originally came through to QualitySolicitors to head up the call centre, the first contact team that we still have in place now. We previously outsourced that, and I came in to basically bring that in as a cost saving. Prior to joining QualitySolicitors, like I say, I was part of the Simplify Group, and I had been there for about 10 years before that as well. And a lot of my time in the latter years had been to set up new teams, manage the teams, inquiry handling, including a contract that we had with the DCLG for the right to buy agent service. But since my time at QualitySolicitors over the 8 years, I'm still very much involved with the first contact team, and a lot of the learnings that we've had with that we can pass on to our existing members, and kind of use the skills and the knowledge that we've gained through that team, try and relay those to our member firms as well to assist them with handling their inquiries and conversion. And then I guess more recently, over the last 18 months, 2 years, became more of the managing of the entire business, including, new member firms, the rest of the team, the marketing team as well. And really now my main role is to ensure all our members are happy, make sure that we're speaking to new suppliers, keeping up to date with what's happening in the legal sector, and making sure that our firms can benefit from, maybe some supplier arrangements or some support from head office, whether that's marketing, whether that's training, or, whether that's some of the other new services that I'm sure we'll discuss that we've introduced over the last 18 months.
Let's start with the elephant in the room. This is QualitySolicitors. Where have you guys been? There was a big bang when obviously it was launched and very, very successful, sold to private equity. And then in December 2022, the management buyout was announced. What was happening with the business in the build up to the management buyout? And then secondly, what's been happening in the time since? Toria, perhaps if you wouldn't mind taking that first part.
Yep, absolutely. So the management buyout happened in December 2022. 15 months prior to that, we left the Simplify Group and we were bought or acquired by Metamorph Group. I guess you mentioned that, we've been quite quiet. And I think in 2016, the senior leadership team changed. And the head office was based in Leicester, and it came over to the offices in St Ives, into the same group offices as Move with us. And I guess at the time, the decision was made that we wanted to focus on our members and making sure that we were servicing them to the best of our ability, and we didn't necessarily need to be in the press and shouting about what we were doing, because we were confident that our member firms knew what we were doing for them. So I guess we were under the radar for quite a while, and then came under the scope a little bit, I guess, in December 2022 with everything that happened. But I guess that also gave us a reason to kind of reset, look at exactly what we were offering to our member firms, what the key benefits were, what our strengths were, and what we could provide them as a team ourselves, and what we wanted to get out of the business ourselves as a team. What was happening in the build-up beforehand, like I say, we were part of Metamorph for 15 months. There wasn't too much that happened during that time. It was, very early days. There had been started to be some collaboration with them, but luckily we as a team were a strong enough team that we could come out the other side of that. And thankfully, a lot of our firms were kind of unaffected by the results of what were happening. And so we just continued to, like I say, reassess exactly what we offered our firms, what we wanted to be known for.
And it's important to say at this stage that you've still got quite a number of firms that are associated with the Quality Solicitors group, albeit that it's now no longer a requirement to have the Quality Solicitors moniker as part of the name. Is that right, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I think originally when QS was established, there was, that comfort, I think, that member firms took from being part of a unilateral brand that was sort of on the high street. That gave them sort of like, a comfort in terms of scale, etc. In the face of potential sort of entrances into that market from much bigger branded organisations. But that didn't, fortunately, never really materialised, that threat, the Tesco Law kind of thing. And subsequently, I think, there's been a much more focus by, all businesses, not just professional sort of like services, on developing their own kind of brand, their own presence, their own cultures, never more so than in law. And we've embraced that. And whilst there are a number of our firms that actually still carry the Quality Solicitors brand, they're very happy to do so. In fact, particularly loyal to do so. For new members, that's no longer necessary. In fact, we want to be at pains to express that. One of our principal roles, as we see it, is helping businesses develop their own brand, both internally with their employees and then externally with the clients and the wider market. That's where our skill sets lie in terms of our marketing and online sort of like services that we can provide. And so, yeah, it's absolutely no longer a requirement at all. If somebody wants to do it, then we don't have any objection, clearly, but more than happy for us to support and take members without that requirement at all.
So if Quality Solicitors, when it was launched, was set up to tackle this lurking threat of Tesco Law in the wake of the Legal Services Act and Alternative Business Structures Act and all that scene, that, as you say, doesn't really seem to have materialised in the way that it might have been anticipated it was going to. What is QS all about here in the here and now? How much does it still reflect the original intentions of the original business, and what's different now?
Well, I guess the principal focus remains the same, which is to support independent regional law firms, right? It's to give them the resource and support to be able to compete effectively in what is a highly competitive market. There are an awful lot of small lawyer organizations, small sort of like firms that are trying to sort of like survive in a very, very tough environment. I mean, it's tough for any business, but it seems to be particularly tough for lawyers, with the increasing threats of regulation, with sort of like the way that sort of like, that particular area of operation has grown more intense, and it's difficult for small firms to make sure that they're operating in line with the requirements of their regulatory body, that they're still keeping a pace with the technology changes that are happening. AI clearly being one of them, which is bandied about regularly, but in reality, probably not as scary as many people think. But online, maintaining sort of like the records, maintaining sort of like the confidentiality of clients, being able to market and hit potential audience and clients effectively, all these things take a tremendous focus and resource, and we're here to be that outsourced party that can underpin that and provide that service for them. And so that principle sort of being able to support independent law firms has not changed at all. Actually, I would say it's got even more needed. It's just that there wasn't a polarizing threat, or there isn't, I should say, a polarizing threat at the moment. There's actually an awful lot of different individual ones which are combining to make it a very tough environment for firms to be successful and grow.
Like Richard said, I think the core principle of why Quality Solicitors was set up is still there, and it's still very much, the core of our thinking when we try to develop new services. We did develop something earlier on this year, actually, called the QS Way, and essentially that focused on where we believe that we can really help law firms to grow, essentially, whether that's grow revenue, grow their client base, grow their people. Essentially, the QS Way was made up of 4 pillars. The first being people, process and procedures, the power of many, and profile. QS is really strong in being able to support the law firms in those 4 areas. We've talked about people quite a bit, and we say that people, play a crucial role in a law firm. Without your people, you can't run the firm. And so we really wanted to embrace and enhance the experience, I guess, that employees have while working in a law firm. So we are looking at a people management system, we're looking at employee engagement, we're looking at employee experience, and we're helping the firms to develop this. Particularly in my role and Richard's role as well, I have the time to research what's happening in the market beyond the legal sector. I can see what's happening in recruitment, or, you can see on LinkedIn, for example, the stress that solicitors find themselves in. And so we wanted to put solutions in place that our QS members could benefit from, including a recruitment service that predominantly work just on QS member firms' recruitment needs. If I kind of skip to profile, again, raising the profile, not just from a B2C point of view, but also from a recruitment point of view. How do the employees actually feel about working for this particular law firm, and how can they compete in the recruitment market? So we help support kind of build that whole landscape for our firms as well. The process and procedures part of the QS Way is really important. Again, we've got a lot of really well-regarded supplier relationships, and some of these have been long-standing supplier relationships, but our firms weren't necessarily using them or utilising them in the right way. So we really wanted to kind of full circle on this, I guess, of saying, if you have this process in place, if you have this procedure in place, then it's going to help something else down the line. If you've got this procedure of having to call back a new client within 24 hours, or if you're doing this and you've got these procedures in place, then it's going to increase the likeliness of a conversion, turning them into your client. But then when you have that client, what happens when that one matter is finished? How do you have them as a lifetime client? When you've dealt with their conveyancing, and I don't know, maybe something else along the line comes up, making a will, for example, how do you communicate to them again that you're there to help them for all of their matters, not just for conveyancing? So we kind of put a lot of these templates, ideas, I guess, processes and procedures for them to kind of, dip into. We're not saying you have to follow the QS Way, but we're saying by doing these things, it's going to benefit you more. The power of many has always kind of been, one of those benefits I think that QS has always had. We can go out to the market, to the suppliers, we can get them discounted rates compared to if they were just to go into that supplier individually. Because they're part of a bigger network, then we can get them better rates. And there's substantial cost savings that our firms receive from these relationships that we've got, and actually some of the benefits and supply relationships that we've got, the firms actually get for free because QS are covering it themselves. the focus is about the firm. It's not about quality solicitors. We look at every firm individually and how we can help them and assist them.
You talked about raising the profile of the firms and also helping them with their marketing, that kind of thing. One of the things I always felt was, to a certain extent, misunderstood about QS was that it really was a consumer focused brand. There was a lot of vitriol around the name QS and the fact that the firms were rebranding as QS, and Quality Solicitors as a name was at times a bit of a figure of fun, if you don't mind me saying. But the important thing here is that, I know in your marketing materials, for example, you talk about the fact that you still get 1 million hits on the QS website. This was about raising the profile of the firms, wasn't it? It was not particularly about the name specifically.
The website is the B2C part of QS. I mean, that still, as you say, gets significant hits. It's the window in which allows, people looking for legal services to find, a firm locally to them that they can utilize. And that's kind of where it ends in terms of, the QS sort of like piece. We constantly sort of like wrestle with, should we rebrand the rest of what we do in terms of like QS head office? Should we put another name on it just to sort of like, make clear that there are two distinct operations? But yeah, not come up with a better one so far. Answers on a postcard.
And I think it's important actually with the website as well. It kind of is the heartbeat of quality solicitors from a consumer point of view. Like you say, we get over a million visits annually to the website, but it's not just about, getting the hits or getting the inquiries. When we're talking about raising profile, it's fine to have this really well-established website, but essentially before anybody's going to make a decision, and we've done this with our consumer research that we did maybe about 15, 18 months ago, people are going to look around, they're going to look at the profile of the solicitor before they make a decision. It doesn't always come down to price. And so when we're talking about the profile of our firms, whether they're on the Quality Solicitors domain, whether or not we're managing their website, we're also looking at their social media, we're also managing their reviews. It's about how they look overall, not just how easy they are to find. But we've got that expertise as well at head office. We've got an SEO specialist who is constantly working to make sure that the content is optimized on the main QS website, but also on our partner firms' websites as well. So it's about raising their profile online, because we all know, particularly after COVID, the high street is not what it was, and more so people are finding services, including legal services, online. So we need to make sure that the profile fits with a quality solicitors firm.
You've both acknowledged that you've been quiet. You are starting to come out again. Part of the reasoning behind doing this podcast, and some of the reasoning behind why it's taken us so long to get together, is because it's been getting the right timing for you in terms of going out again into the market. I know, for example, you're actively recruiting firms as well. What are the plans now and sort of over the course of the next 12, 24 months for QS? Yeah,
so as you say, we feel we've got, frankly, a superb offering now, which new firms can review, and we will tailor a membership solution for them as and when their business needs it. So we've come up with 3 levels of entry, as it were. We've got an associate membership, which is absolutely free. That really focuses on sort of like being part of the community, being able to access sort of the various podcasts and events that we do, but also having access to sort of key sort of services which the power of many kind of like delivers, such as we said, the recruitment service. Now, that is 15% is the fee on that based on actual success. So significant saving on the market kind of like rates that are out there for recruiting people. And so that's just one simple example there where we know that actually what they're going to get access to is immediate benefit. Then we've got our Aspire membership, which is kind of like I guess full member light, I would sort of like say. So there's more access to services through that, roughly about £500 a month. So again, not a huge kind of massive cost for people, but again, it does allow people to get access to other services at a discounted rate if they want them. So it's well worth doing. And then last but not least, the full membership, where basically there is an absolute whole host of services that they get as part of that, including sort of like the marketing support, training, etc. And it's just well worth a firm, no matter what their kind of size or business kind of like, journey they're on. We will happily work with established sort of like marketing departments within firms, or we'll actually be the marketing department for a firm. It's really, a case of getting to know what a firm is looking to achieve, what their plans are, and then we genuinely wish to help them succeed in that area. So it's a lot more, I think, now flexible as a proposal than it was. Membership, as I say, can be tailored, and the level of individual sort of like services and attention that we pay to a firm is now substantially improved from the historical kind of base that it started with. Going forward, there's just more to come. We're, as I said, launching a new training platform. We've spent a lot of time trying to find that. We've partnered up with a new supplier now, TPA. We're delighted with them. They're sort of innovative. The content of the training is absolutely best in class. We're very excited to get that into our members. Further down the line, we obviously want to grow bigger and better. At its height, the business had over 200 plus firms, it was a significant size. We're no longer as big as that. We still got sort of like over 100 sort of sites around the country, but we clearly want more, because our research proves that customers of our clients are looking for, services within, say, a 5-mile radius of where they live. So consequently, we want a denser network so that we can actually service those clients. We'll be adding more suppliers, more relevant suppliers. We're going to have an IT helpline sort of support network set up soon. It's not something we've done in the past, but I think, the use and the importance of technology within firms, well, any business, is getting to that point where it's actually critical, and therefore getting access to expert support to help you decide right at the outset, what actually do you need to run the business, not just now, but for the future proofing of the business. So you're not having to sort of like, get a whole scale new platform every sort of like 3 years, but what happens, what bits do you actually need? What are you going to get the training for? And that kind of thing is where we're going, so that we can give people, best in class support and services as their business grows.
And it certainly always used to be the case that firms had a fairly tight geographic, didn't they? Is that still going to be the case?
Yes, we still have kind of the territories, I guess, of each of the firms, particularly for a full member. Typically, they're the ones that are going to be getting the inquiries through our website. In order for fairness, I guess, more than anything, so that there isn't a conflict, we will still look for those territories and still give those territories out to new members. And we know, or have at least identified a number of areas where we know that we're still getting inquiries, or we get inquiries for whatever reason in those areas, and we haven't got a member at the moment. So they will probably be kind of our focus, because we want to make sure that we can service them. But also, it's a benefit to the firms if we can help them from the get-go start to get inquiries coming through to them.
I guess if we're going to summarise the discussion here, there's an element of this where, and I hope you don't mind me saying, there's a misconception. There's a myth here to bust. There's some misconceptions about what quality solicitors might have been, what it is now. And I guess if there's a call to action from you guys, it's to say, look, come and have a chat, find out what we're about, and find out what we have to offer in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the business as it is now is kept the great bits that QS had, and that's evidenced by the fact that we've got members that are still here that were here at the start. Whenever you've got a business like that, you must be doing something right. Now we're confident that what we have, what we can deliver, is relevant. It's appropriate for the current business environment, and as far as we can see for the future, we will continue to be flexible, and so we're not sitting on our hands and what have you. We will continually look at delivering, what is right for the businesses and what their needs are going forward. What we kind of want is just to have the opportunity to have that conversation and find out what it is that a firm's looking for. And then we will do our utmost to absolutely support them and deliver those services that they need. And it's as simple as that. So there is no need for rebranding. There is no need to sort of like, where I believe they actually had uniforms at one stage. So there's no need for that at all. It's a case of making, good firms great. And with our support, we genuinely believe that we can achieve that.
From its inception to where we are in 2024, we've shown and proven that we're adaptable. We're committed to empowering local high street law firms, and we'll continue to evolve and remain dedicated to supporting our network.
Well, it's been great to have you both on the podcast, of course, sharing some of your thoughts and insight into what's been happening over the past few years. And, from me personally, I wish you all the very best with the relaunch, I suppose, if there's a word for it, over the course of the next few months and years. So thank you very much indeed for joining the podcast, Richard.
Thanks, David. Thank you very much indeed. Been a pleasure.
Thank you.
The Today's Family Lawyer podcast is available on your preferred podcast provider. It's also available on todaysfamilylawyer.co.uk. My thanks to Richard and also to Toria. Thank you as ever for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
You're listening to the Today's Family Lawyer podcast, the leading source of daily news and insight for family law practitioners in England and Wales. Sign up to our free weekly newsletter at todaysfamilylawyer.co.uk and subscribe to hear all the latest news and views from across the family law sector. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.